actually what we have been doing the previous two webinars. So Dora, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Bojana. Welcome to all. Thank you so much for being here with us. As Bojana said, during the previous webinars, we had the chance to make an introduction to the field of AI and education, as well as to present how AI tools could be integrated in the educational process through concrete examples. Today, our focus will be in the field of ethics in AI through the use of AI systems in education and how they could contribute to the provision of a democratic education. So we are very delighted to have as speakers experienced researchers in the field, and we're very looking forward to listening to their insights.
Thank you, Dora. Not to take so much of your time, we will go with our first presenter. Today we have our dear colleague, Francisco Belas, who is a professor at the Universidade da Coruña. He has been researching for more than 20 years in the field of AI applied to DC related to machine learning and autonomous robots. Since 2016, Francisco has participated in the development of the educational robot Robobo, which has received numerous international awards and recognitions related to STEM education. In the last 5 years, he has led different educational projects in the field of AI education, mainly for pre-university levels, focused on the development of AI adapted curricula and also on the development of intelligent tutoring in AI in education in the Junta de Galicia and the leader of one of the working groups. Francisco today will share with us his insight, and the title of his presentation is Use Gen AI to Work with You, not instead of you. So Francisco, please give us some insight what we can learn from and how we can use it.
Thank you, Dora, and all the organizers for inviting me. I will share my screen. I have prepared some slides to follow all of us the same ideas. Okay. I would say that I am not exactly an expert on ethics. Okay, but I have quite experience on education in AI. Mainly, I have been in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years, teacher training in AI in my region, and I have some experience about what I think really worries. What are teachers worried about in terms of ethics in their practical application of AI in education? Okay, so I will try to make a presentation which is quite practical, showing some tips and some ideas that always we are talking about in my courses with other teachers. Okay, so first of all, well, this is I will share this presentation with Dora and all the organizers in case you want to have it because I have there some links and other things. Okay, so don't worry about taking notes or something like that. And I know that it will be recorded also. Here is my email, and you can contact me in case you need some extra information or whatever. Okay, so ethics on artificial intelligence is mainly constructed around the concept of trustworthy AI. So trustworthy AI has a set of basic dimensions around it, like transparency, responsibility, safety, robustness, or privacy. Okay, that are complex concepts that has to be faced in the realm of AI. But my question here is a little bit more, let's say, general or simple. The question is for many teachers, but why AI is not really trustworthy? I mean, why this so new and powerful technology, why cannot we trust on this technology? You know? So let me make a very brief introduction about what AI is, for instance, for the Council of Europe. Okay, in the glossary of the Council of Europe, you can read this definition: set of sciences, theories, and techniques whose purpose is to reproduce by a machine the cognitive abilities of a human being. And what is more relevant, current developments aim to be able to entrust a machine with complex tasks previously delegated to a human. Okay, so from this definition, we get 2 or 3 ideas which are the key ideas in trustworthiness of AI. The first one is that AI is supposed to solve complex tasks, okay? Whatever it means, I will go later into details. The second one is that AI is supposed to solve tasks that were previously solved by humans, okay? And the third one is that it has the capability of taking autonomous decisions. With these 3 ideas in mind, the question that why AI is not trustworthy can be more or less answered. First one, if AI is applied to solving complex problems, it is probable that this technique provides us complex responses. And maybe these responses are too complex to be understood by, let's say, a general public. Okay, so this is one of the problems, that maybe we do not understand what the system decision is, and this is something that has to be taken into account. Maybe the answer is too complex. Second, regarding the autonomy of this kind of system, these systems can replace our own decision making. Okay, so these kind of systems are designed to take the decision on their own. Okay, so this is something that goes against what is called human agency. Okay, our own capacity to take decisions could be affected by AI systems. Okay, and third, from taking into consideration the technical details about AI is not a 100% accurate technology. Okay, in fact, in AI, we always work with probabilities, with confidence levels and things like that. So in general, the answers that we get from an AI system could not be that accurate as in, let's say, standard software. Okay, so this is something that we also have to keep into account when we are talking about the trustworthy of AI. So this is why, in general, we should have a different view to AI systems that we had in the past with another digital tools or software. What can we do as teachers in the realm of this trustworthiness? What we can do is to promote critical thinking. This is the key idea in my short talk. Okay, so critical thinking in teachers allows us to trust or not to trust in this kind of systems, but considering all the aspects that make this technology different. Okay, so going to a more, let's say, typical, but also I think that more clearer example, I will talk a little bit about generative AI, okay? As most of you know, generative AI is a field of AI which basically is devoted with the creation of let's say, digital outputs in different formats, mainly text, image, video, and audio, but many other digital outputs could be possible. So the idea in generative AI is that we have a tool, an AI tool, that starting from a prompt, which is, let's say, an order or a command that we write, okay, we get an answer from the system that is supposed to be creative, in the sense that this answer is not copied from somewhere else, but is created. Okay, there are many technical details behind this, but this is the general idea that we all know about, for instance, how ChatGPT or Gemini or these popular chat bots work. Okay, we have nowadays plenty of different types of tools based on generative AI that create text, images, video, audio, and so on. Okay, so this field is exploding, and I know that a lot of teachers are really worried about how to use it or how to use it properly, we could say. Okay, so teachers right now are using generative AI, okay? They are using generative AI to create educational materials, lesson plans, and new methodologies for some activities in the classroom. They are using generative AI to create questions, for instance, for an assessment or an exam for their students. They're using generative AI for administrative tasks like creating documents, writing emails, or something like that. And also to create images that they use to illustrate situations in their classroom. So this is something that is happening right now. Okay, so Gen AI is a technology that teachers are using today. Okay, but are you as teachers aware of the limitations of generative AI? The limitations of generative AI come from the technical background, okay, which is a tool or let's say a technology that is called large language models. And it is known in the field that these kind of models have some problems, let's say, or limitations, okay? They can create some biases in the output or inaccuracies. It is not that clear how they use your personal data, and they can create homogeneous and impersonal responses. So these are 4 typical problems that we know that we have in large language models, okay? And the idea is that currently the two, I would say that the 2 most formal documents that you can find in the realm of the ethical uses as teachers that you have to consider when using generative AI in your classes are these 2 documents that I show you in the screen. The first one, the left one, is from the European Commission. It's a little bit old. We are talking about 2 or 3 years ago, but in this field, this is normally considered the old, okay. And the second one is from UNESCO. Okay, I recommend you as teachers to have a look at both documents. Okay, they are easy to read, they are very, very interesting, and I make you here a summary, and I will try to connect these 2 ideas, the idea of the ethical issues and the idea of the trustworthiness of AI in these recommendations, okay? So the first thing that we can find in both documents is that as a teacher, when you are using generative AI, you have to analyze some ethical aspects from the output that the system provides you. I mean, you have to do this. You have to be aware that you have to review the biases and the inaccuracies of the systems because these problems are there. So after creating a text or creating an image, try to reflect, try to, let's say, make an test of the output in order to analyze, okay, does the system create any kind of bias or does the system create any kind of inaccuracy? And this is why it is important to be aware about the topic that you are creating the output, because if it is a topic in which you don't have any experience, it is complicated that you can judge the accuracy, okay? So first of all, analyzing the ethical aspects. Second point, analyzing the intellectual property, okay? When you are using generative AI, you have to be careful with one element, that is that your own opinion could be, if you use the output to put in a document or whatever, that is supposed to reflect your own opinion, be careful with that, because these kind of systems create homogeneous answers. So your opinion is not there, is the opinion of the system, if this kind of system has a kind of opinion. But the idea is that you are using the output of an AI system as your own opinion, and this is dangerous. You have to be careful with the copyright. In the same sense, I have a lot of teachers that they are always asking me things like, can I upload a PDF that is protected or that is whatever, copyrighted, okay, to ChatGPT and make a question about it? You should not do that. You should not do that, because you have to keep in mind that this is something that is copyright protected, and when you use it in a open tool like is ChatGPT that is telling you that your data can be used for another purposes, this is not fair. This is not safe. Okay, so you have to be careful about this. Do not use your personal data in this kind of tools because of the same idea that this data can be shared. It is complicated that your specific data is used in a, let's say, literal way, okay? But it could arise in some other searches, so you have to be careful about this, okay? Then you should try to avoid reusing knowledge using when you are using generative AI, because I mean, generative AI is normally creating homogeneous responses unless you make good prompts and you know how to use the context properly. Okay, in that case, you can get a more biased answer, more, let's say, tailored to what you want. But in general, if the prompts are poor, let's say, or very traditional prompts, I mean, if you don't have the training to do that properly, then you are creating a set of homogeneous and not that good answers. And a lot of people is doing this, and this is a problem, okay? And the last one, the most important one, always judge the result of this kind of generative AI tool, okay? Always. These are the 4 main recommendations that you can get from these 2 documents. Of course, the documents are much more deeper than these, so I recommend you to have a look at them. Considering the legal issues, Dora, or sorry, when I have like 2 minutes, just let me know, okay? Because I am not sure about how much time do I still have.
Yes,
sorry.
of course.
Okay. Regarding the legal issues, as you know, we have from August the AI Act in Europe, which establishes risk levels. When it comes to education, I just want to mention these 2 that I have here in the slide, okay? Assessing individuals in tests, a part of their education is high risk, so you cannot do it. Determining the access or influencing on the decision of the admission of a student in a course in whatever educational institution is high risk. You should not do it. But this is not ethical. This is legal. Okay, so there is a clear difference between these 2 ideas that I am mentioning here. There are many other legal issues related to data and so on, but I just want to focus in this because I have an example. So, for instance, imagine that you want to use generative AI for automatic grading. This is something that I see that a lot of teachers are starting to do. What they do is that they use their own, let's say, solution to an exercise or whatever as a template. And they say the Gen AI system, ChatGPT, for instance, compare the solutions of these students with my solution using this criteria and give me grading. Okay, this is not illegal, but this is dangerous. This is what I want to say, because it's not illegal because you are using a tool to do that kind of repetitive job in your name, but then you should be able to answer that student when the student comes to your office and tells you, I don't know why this grading was that way, or why did you assess this part this way. You should be able to give an answer. If you are not able to give an answer, then you are not doing the job properly with Gen AI. And this is what is happening right now. A lot of people is using this tool to make the assessment, and then they directly transfer the assessment to the, let's say, Excel spreadsheet or whatever. And this is not legal at the moment. Okay. For instance, imagine that in your school, you have to write a report or an official document, and you have to rely on a template, which is complicated, or maybe you have to rely on some legal aspects that you are not clear. Okay, you can do that. You can use Gen AI for that, because Gen AI can help you, but Gen AI can be inaccurate in the laws. So you have to be very careful with that. Okay. And second, you have to keep in mind that when you are sending this kind of report or letter or whatever, you are acting in the name of your institution or in your own name. So you have to check what is there, because it is your responsibility what is there. So in these two examples that I think they are quite clear, these two examples are in between what is legal, what is ethical. You can do both of them, but you have to be very careful. So it is your personal responsibility as teachers to make a proper use of generative AI in this kind of cases. Okay, this is very important. So just as a final recommendation, I would say that when you're using Gen AI as teachers, you have to extract the good from Gen AI. This is why my title is Use AI to Work with You, because the idea is that if you are solving any kind of repetitive task, when you are not putting your opinion or your perspective, like taking notes from a meeting or reviewing a legal test or creating a QR code, whatever, that is fine. No problem. Use it because it's a nice tool for doing that. But if you are creating some kind of text, for instance, a proofreading of an exam, analyzing a text with your name, writing a legal report or whatever, where your opinion is there, you have to be really, really careful with that. You have to review it. You have to analyze the biases. You have to check all the points that I mentioned before. Okay. And just to finish, there are different ways of improving the output that this kind of system provides you. Okay, you can, let's say, you can adjust more or less the level of reliability, and creativity of this kind of system. But going into the details of how to do this implies that, as I mentioned before, in order to be able to have a critical thinking, as I am proposing here, now focus in Gen AI, you should receive a capacity building as teachers. Everything that I am mentioned, I just have one slide, sorry. Everything that I am mentioned here at the end is that, okay, in order to have a critical view of, in this case, generative AI, in order to be able to evaluate the trustworthiness of generative AI systems, it is important that you have a capacity building, that you have as teacher the competences about the knowledge, in the sense that you understand what AI is, skills in order to use these tools, and attitudes in order to be able to be critical with the things that you are receiving from this kind of systems. Okay, teacher competences have been defined like 2 or 3 months ago in a very interesting document from UNESCO, Competence Framework for Teachers. I know that the different countries are trying to put this into teacher training programs. But what I want to say at the end is that it is very relevant in order to reach this capacity of being critical with AI, to develop or to increase our capacity building. Okay, at the end, this is a news that you can read in the newspaper. Is great. It's a girl that is saying, I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for AI to do art and writing so I can do my laundry and dishes. Okay, so this is a good reflection that I like always to put in my talks, because I think that we should use AI to help us, not to do that job that we would like to do as humans. Okay, so try to use it in the proper way. And that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francisco, for this very interesting question. On very last slide, reminded me of something I would like to think is ready, and so on and so on. But before I give a floor to Roy, our next presenter and speaker, I will also encourage the participants to pose a question in the chat box. So later, now or later, you can answer. But before we go to Roy, the question for me is, you mentioned the UNESCO and well, your presentation is quite in line with the reference framework for the civic democratic competences, basically, what Council of Europe developed years ago. But my question to you is, are you aware that in the moment there are some proper trainings for teachers in order to be more aware about it? Why I'm asking, I'm a history teacher, and 2-3 years ago I have found out that students are using some chat box like they're talking to Napoleon or they're talking to Hitler. This is really like making history a fiction. But are our teenager students aware of where is the differentiation between fact and fiction? For me, this is an ethical question. So please just very briefly respond. Is there any kind of proper trainings or informative sessions for teachers regarding all these questions that you have raised?
Well, I think that this is a matter of the country or even the region, because you can find proper teacher training programs in some regions, which is surprising and spectacular for me. And the region that is the neighbor region does not have anything. So this is something that I think that the ideas that are in the UNESCO document, or the ideas that they have at the European level, do not arrive to the regional level. And is the regional level what has the competences to create these teacher programs, So it's a matter that I think is more a policymaker point. And this is one thing that, for instance, in our squad group, we are trying to provide recommendations to developers, teachers, students, but the most important ones are for the policymakers, because we could have great ideas and great competency frameworks, but they have to make them to arrive at the schools. And the first point, we all know that the first point here is teachers. So can we create right now proper training programs for teachers? Yes. Yes, I answered yes to that question, because I have been teaching a lot of teachers, and they receive all of this information properly for history, but for language, for maths, for many. They apply all this knowledge to these specific subjects. But the problem is that they don't, for instance, when we have in our region a program, a teacher training program with about AI, and we have like 25 room for 25 people, we have like 300 people they're interested on entering there. So imagine that it is not properly organized. I mean, and this organization is at the low level. I mean, that from the UNESCO, from the EU, we cannot go with that. But I think that what we can do is to insist to policymakers how relevant this is for all the teachers. Okay, so at the end, they will have to create better programs. So the answer is yes, there are programs that are very good, but they are not, let's say, homogeneous in all the regions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Francisco. Then I would conclude like good old advocacy for the improvement of education probably will have to be implied. Thank you so much. You are staying here with us, open for questions. So please write it down for Francesco. Our next presenter is Roy Saurab, who has extensive expertise in AI for education, focusing on designing systems that prioritize equity, inclusivity, and learner well-being. He is the digital transformation lead at UNESCO and a human-computer interaction researcher at Université Paris-Cité. His work includes evangelizing trustworthy AI through platforms designed for low-resource settings, modeling learners' cognitive and emotional trajectories to enhance mental health and social-emotional learning. Roy's research spans AI trustworthiness, data governance, human-machine interaction, and open source, all aimed to supporting human flourishing. So today, Roy will present a presentation, as you see here, ethical AI design for learner-centric system, balancing personalization, privacy, and equity. I'm quite keen to hear what you have to share with us, Roy.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well. Yeah, okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And it's always hard to follow Fran, because I think at least 3 of my 10 slides are the same. So it's job done. So I thought of 5 minutes, 10 slides, like I think it's going to be 3.5. So I'll be done. No, but jokes aside, thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for letting me share something which is not something which I get a chance to talk or think about a lot. So that's something which thanks Dora, thanks all the organizers to help me share a few thoughts. The idea was a lot of, and again, being in UNESCO, you say a lot of things which hardly people would disagree with. So then it's like, what's complicated, and that's what I tried to unpack a bit. Even though the directive was very clear that it should not be super technical, it should not be the audience is this, but there is also this aspect of it is a deeply technical topic which is juxtaposed on societal context. So there is a little bit of mindset or a getting ready for being a bit vulnerable also, which is also a part of this. So I would invite you also to hear certain things, not fully understanding all of it, but the idea being this itself through these few slides is to just understand that there are few options which are there, and just those keywords, if we as educators are also aware of, can help in bridging the gaps between these interdisciplinary groups, which is what AI compels you to do. So with that, yes, it's a mouthful, the title itself, but the idea was that there is a holy grail of personalization, and AI, for example, different from rule-based system, does acknowledge heterogeneity of context. So it's not in a rule-based system, you say, if this is the case, then you do this. If this is the case, you do that. But with AI, in the broadest of the sense, it does acknowledge the heterogeneity in the context in which it's implemented, which means it's much more suited and closer to real world promise than simple automation is. And that's the promise because of which we are discussing everything around ethics, because if it was all bad, then it would have been so easy to discard it. But because it has so much of affordances and promise within, that's why it's something which is worthy of a discussion. So as I was sharing, this dual role on one side, it improves learning outcome. There is very relatively new studies which are measuring on it, because again, there's a huge amount of noise which gets made out in media and with edtech and things, but then from learning scientists and the actual practitioners, this aspect is still fairly new, where the efficacy of edtech is something which is still being studied. And in education sciences, most of us know it takes time to see what needle is being moved and how much do we care about that needle and how much of it is techno-determinism, where anything new and flashy comes in the technical domain, and whole of the education systems and ecosystem have to clamor to feel that they are cutting edge and they are not left behind. But again, the core principles which Fran more extensively talked about, but specifically about fairness, accountability, transparency, privacy. These are again things which, whatever we would do in the context of education and learning, these principles are not something which could be a hindsight. It has to be core of whenever we think about it, the mindset when we are thinking of even, so the digital transformation, which according to our framework also within UNESCO starts with the mindset and the leadership and the vision setting. These are for and center. And that's what when you see at the two frameworks also, which UNESCO had launched, the first two aspects in both AI competency framework for teachers and AI competency framework for students is human-centered mindset and ethics of AI, where we talk about human agency, human accountability, social responsibility, as well as we talk about ethical principles, safe and responsible use, and on the highest and the most advanced level is co-creating those ethical rules itself. And it's not by coincidence. The idea is this itself, that there could not be a competency framework, even if it's not focused on ethics, which does not include human-centered mindset and ethics by design. So where is the problem? Everything, when you look at the AI CFT framework or AI CFS framework, you'll be like, oh yes, everyone should have these aspects, everyone should build AI foundations, should be problem scoping, there should be safe and responsible use. But the problems come when there is tensions between the two amazing values and principles. Simple example could be personalization versus privacy. Or something which is really personalized to me requires knowing me, and knowing me, how it would require knowing about me in data points sensitivity. And that's one of the papers which I would encourage you to read, is privacy as an information integrity, contextual integrity, because it's not like a data point is private or not private. It's always the context of the information flow which has either integrity or does not have integrity. So something which is personalized does require gathering granular personal information, which then raises the personal risks and privacy risks which come with it, which then again raise the security risks and everything which comes within. The second thing, again, since we're talking about AI, and when you talk about AI, you talk about data. When you talk about data, you talk about training data, which is what we use to train the AI models for any of the tasks which we define within a learning ecosystem. For that data set to be inclusive and representative, which again, for a democratic ecosystem, representativeness of the data is going to be paramount. And if that's not representative, howsoever good the model might be, howsoever amazing the technical team or the functional team or the strategic team could be, if it was developed for some context which is not representative in the other context in which it's being deployed, it would create adverse societal impact sooner or later. And that is something which, again, in the supply chain, if that linkage is not super clear, because many a times model is developed in a research setting, is commercialized and packaged by for-profit organizations, and then are deployed by government using third-party vendors. So it's already a very convoluted supply chain of any AI system, and especially if you're wanting to cover all the complete life cycle of AI, which every recommendation ethics of AI, OECDs, EU commissions, UNESCO's would talk to you about, that ethics cannot be just at the deployment stage. It should be complete AI lifecycle. Many a times those levers and those agencies lie in different organizations. So even you might feel that the developer should take care of it. Maybe the business model is not incentivized enough, or they are not even aware how their developed model is being used. So it's not as simple as just finding the root cause of a problem. And then finally, again, automation versus learner autonomy. Very simple examples like recommendations and the learning resource recommendations may feel that, it understands me, so it's offering me the things which it feels are most useful for me. But then it is taking away a part of the choice from the learners and from the teachers. And again, when teachers are learners, it becomes even super complicated, because how can you make a judgment about something which you have not even seen? Because the algorithm decided that you should not, based on your behavior, this is what should be recommended to you, rather than something which could be on an antithesis side, but could be actually open up a new affordance, which otherwise, if you would have discovered, you would have been compelled to process that. So these are few of the things where the teacher's role becomes super critical. And not many a times, again, like with France, one of the points I just somehow want to add a small asterisk, saying that while it is your responsibility, by design also pushing a lot of things at the end users, which many a times teachers who are already overwhelmed, is a poor design, where a lot of it is going and shifting to individuals. And that's why, like, again, policies and ensuring that systems by design itself have certain things which take away end user responsibility, because again, they are busy and overwhelmed with 1,001 other things also. So this cannot be on them. But at the same time, what he was sharing was perfectly right also, that if you are doing something out of the system, then you need to, it's your responsibility before it actually reaches to the learners and people who are impacted by it. So a few things which sorry.
Just a few more minutes, and then
Yes,
I will give you.
And that's what, like, these are just an example, because as you would already know, that there are affect-aware systems and things where there is already a lot of research from neuroscience itself that if you emotionally engage, if affect is also a part of a learning journey, your retention is higher, your reproducibility of facts and learning outcomes is much higher. But then again, learning about someone's emotions is extremely private, and extremely behavioral insights can be gathered out of it, which extend beyond. Like, you can learn about someone in an educational setting, but it does not just speak about him or her in the education sector. It speaks about them, who they are. So it's extremely hard to see what the learning sciences promises, but at the same time, you do it in designs. But the way I share these examples is because we have those best practices where this fine line has been balanced, and it is compliant to GDPR, to EU AI Act, and with UNESCO's recommendation. Common source of bias, as I mentioned, comes in the dataset imbalances itself, where cultural misalignment, which again at UNESCO we care a lot about, how do you embed it? How do you keep incentivizing the right mix in the data sets, and always keep auditing while you're training itself, rather than at the end of the system when it has been trained. A few of the techniques which I would share this presentation just for you to know these terms, and if you say these terms to the right people, they would know what you're talking about. And that is something which is also important, because to feel that, oh, no, this is not possible, is also a belief which I wanted to share with each of the civic leaders here and everyone who is a decision maker, that there are technical solutions, provided we ask for them. And if at an advocacy level, it's important for us to raise our voices and say that, yes, we want these personalized experiences, but not at the cost of privacy. And someone cannot say that, no, either choose a functionality or choose your ethics. You cannot have both. There are good use cases which we compile and share within our knowledge instruments to share with you that. These are few other practices: differential privacy, federated learning, where the data doesn't move, the model comes to you, so that the data never is compromised on the transit. Data minimalization, not collecting everything and anything by the big tech and hoping in future they might be able to commercialize it. No, but collecting only the things for which there is the consent and the advantage, which is proven in the literature. Governance framework, again, very direct, very clear directives around what are the good practices and who all should be a part of that governance framework. Discussions around data ownership and governance, and capacity building around that. Finally, again, what we have done is created good checklists, good procurement terms of references, which schools can use, institutes can use, policymakers can use when they procure systems of AI. And running through that checklist, and digital literacy programs, AI literacy programs, critical thinking, which Fran was emphasizing on. These are the things which we are accompanying every of our normative instruments with, so that every layer of stakeholders can participate in an informed fashion. Final slide on call to action: engage educators. One of the things which we say within the teacher section in the UNESCO is nothing on teachers without teachers. And that stands for, you can replace teachers by any stakeholder and it would stand. And that's one of the things in co-design principle has to be a part of the process. Build capacity. You have to, in a systematic way, Fran, what he was mentioning, we at UNESCO try to do with teacher training institutes, so that, especially with pre-service teacher training institutes, so that when the new cohort of teachers come in, they already have the mindset, have the frameworks embedded within it, so that the classroom practice is in line with it. The final is, again, we work in low resource settings, and within EU also there is a huge amount of context. We cannot all increase digital divide, and that's where you need these policies more often than not at the places where they are present the least. I would stop here, but I really wanted to use this opportunity to start a dialogue and create this kind of community of practice where people care about these things. And then the solution part, there are a few which we can help discover. Let's stop here.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Roy, for a very interesting presentation. It comes to my mind while listening to you, only one word: empathy. So the education is a perfect tool where we are really helping students to develop and raise an empathy. How far digital tools can help with it, I'm still not convinced fully. But I will stop here and give a floor to the participants. Is there any question or comment on Roy's presentation? So please. Okay, Dora, you raised your hand, please.
Hello. Thank you, Roy. Thank you so much for this interesting presentation. And because you mentioned before the importance of integrity, I would like to bring into discussion and maybe to add to the empathy the concept of academic integrity and how important you think it should be as being part of this whole discussion, and how easy, if it is easy for us, like teachers, educators, to train or to teach our students how to ethically use all these AI systems.
Maybe I can take a first stab at a few thoughts, because again, this is a very complex problem, but it's only complex when you truly wanna use this opportunity to challenge yourself. Because if it's about just oh, can you detect AI or not from the essays of your learners, it's almost like it's going to get solved because watermarking and things are getting there. But if it's this discussion about assessments itself was something which was coming before even generative AI and AI in general was coming in. So if in the organizations, and that's what you would see, it's such a clear way of seeing which countries banned ChatGPT, which came in, and which had a policy of wait and watch. And you can see the countries, I won't take the name of the countries, but I would highly encourage you to learn which one, where all ChatGPT. And these are those countries which are scared of this aspect itself, that the knowledge production and knowledge churning needs to be something which should be highly controlled. In information societies where it is about, okay, fine, you might get answers from certain things, and people equate it to sometimes calculators or from just as a paper. I really feel those analogies are always they are not the best ones. But what I would say is that academic integrity again starts from the mindset, and that's the part which is what we at UNESCO a lot of it harp around, because as teachers, as learners, and that's where when we talk about empathy also, we had a framework called EMC Square, where we combine empathy with mindfulness, compassion, and critical inquiry. And the idea was, if you as a learner, you as a teacher have these social emotional learning competencies built within you, then it would be about reinventing the context in which your knowledge gets tested, and not just alone, but for the purpose. So for example, if it's for higher education or getting admission into the next university or getting a gainful employment, then talking and co-working with the employers as to what do they care about. Do they care about that someone solved a corporate problem by using ChatGPT? If they don't, then that's not a necessary skill for a student or learner to have. So the good part is there is enough amount of openness in all the key stakeholders. So if an institute education leader wants to find a solution which works for it, they're using this opportunity. And that's what COVID also did, where people said, and especially in higher education, that nothing can happen without a physical infrastructure. A lot of those questions have now been reframed. So while academic integrity is something which is for sure has been accelerated, but I do feel it's also an opportunity.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Dora. We will move now to our next speaker. We have Ksenia Zuvelu. Ksenia will share with us what is the Council of Europe approach in guiding AI in education. Quite interesting topic, but before I give a floor to Ksenia, I will just give you a few words about her. Ksenia is the head of AI Politia Lab at Centre Demokritos, which focuses on AI ethical, socio-technical challenges and policy impact. She co-chairs the AI focus group at the European Digital SME Alliance, also participates in the Council of Europe expert group on AI in education, and supports sustainable AI democratization. So Ksenia, the floor is yours. Tell us what the Council of Europe is doing in this field.
Thank you very much, Bojana, and thank you everyone for this kind invitation. I think It is really amazing, all the different perspectives, and I'm really pleased and honored to be part of this discussion, which is really, really very interesting. I feel like Roy. I think it is very difficult for someone to add something after all these nice presentations and covering all the different themes. So I'll try to be swift and try to see how to integrate. I think Roy's presentation was kind of linking to mine in the sense that we are really at the crossroad of trying to assess the promises of technology and the challenges of technology and where we stand or where we want to stand as a society. So all this discussion about the integrity and the personal responsibility that I really liked from Francisco in the very beginning, I think they are very, very crucial. So in my discussion today, I will try to make a short overview very swiftly of these different promises and challenges, trying to complement our great speakers, and then try to see and integrate, embed the perspective from the Council of Europe work that is done up to now with a set of different frameworks and tools that are meant to complement and implement responsible and trustworthy AI practices in the context of education. So indeed, we all have a commonality in our discussions that there are numerous promises for AI in education. The potential is significant. There are a number of studies that indicate this from UNESCO, from the European Commission, from the Council of Europe. So very, very broadly, if we want to define these different types, we would say that AI really helps us learning with AI, so trying to use tools in the teaching, learning, and to support us in the different administrative tasks. Using AI to learn about learning. Here we focus more on learning analytics and how we can help the learning progression and understand better the learning progression. Learning about AI, human and technological dimensions of AI literacy, and then how we can prepare for AI and how we can ensure that we all together, we will move and transition in this evolving technological era. Despite of these promises, there are a number of challenges that we can see them in a duality. So here we want to reflect upon how we can address these challenges in order to allow humans to flourish with this technology. So going to the concerns, we could say that concerns from the AI for AI in education could be seen from the lens of the teachers. We heard before all the different components of ethical challenges and concerns in general. Here from a study in 2023, you will see that teachers in US indicated algorithmic transparency, how transparent are the AI systems, the user control of the data, we heard this before as a significant aspect, along with the engagement and how much stakeholders are involved in the actual development and how their perspectives are accounted in this context. Sorry, you wanted to add something? I cannot see who is speaking. If you want to pose a question, I'm happy.
No, all is okay. All is okay.
Great. Okay. So going back to the concerns, we would say that if we wanted to group them, and you saw in the very beginning, Francisco very nicely presented all the different ethical challenges in a trustworthy AI perspective, which is really crucial. We can also see challenges centered around different connections that are relevant for AI and education, focusing on AI and learners, aspects that Roy and Francisco mentioned about privacy, equity, and inclusion within this context, the aspect of learner agency, and which is the impact really of technologies on the cognitive development of children, but also aspects that have to do with the ethics of AI and education per se. So children, we see them in many cases being used as testers of AI and education technologies. So we need to go and move further from simple ethical principles into more concrete action. And focusing on the ethics of education is a crucial perspective. Then we also see more macroscopic aspects as challenges. So AI and the educational system. So we see a lot of political and economic drivers. We see a privatization of AI and educational tools. And of course, this impacts the risks or increases the risks of marginalization of already marginalized learners. And of course, we see a lot of transnational issues. So for instance, there are countries that exhibit significant asymmetries in the investment in AI and educational tools. So here we see what we call AI colonialism, a technological dependence on specific vendors, but also a cultural dominance in specific aspects of technological tools. And then continuing to the concerns, we see elements that have to do with accessibility and equity that was mentioned before, but here it is nice to reflect on this as a duo, in the sense that from the one side, we see technology helping us to make education more accessible and personalized, helping teachers with tools to identify the unique learning paths of students and the pain points. But on the other hand, not all students in school have equal access to technology or the relevant infrastructure that we need. So we see a potential transition to a digital and an emerging AI educational divide. But at the same time, we can see that technology can also help us address these concerns and challenges. The example of UNICEF and the accessible digital textbooks that you can find in the global portal, which is a unique way to revolutionize textbooks using AI and allowing all to access them, especially people with disabilities, but also all diverse learners. And of course, allowing this textbook to be accessed offline is a significant way forward. Going back to more concerns, and I'll try to be very, very brief. Here we have three different areas that I wanted to stress. So the AI and teacher-student relationships, we can see that technology potentially may create some challenges linked with the over-reliance on AI and how this may impact the relationship between students and learners. How in the era of generative AI, what Bojana mentioned before in her question, how this may erode this relationship, the over-reliance on AI from the side of students. Then we see concerns linked with AI and skill development. So in this era of AI automation, someone cannot help wondering how we can ensure that educational systems really prepare students of all ages with the skills that they need for the future. So here we need really to reflect about how is education of the future should be, or how education of today should be in order to prepare us better for tomorrow. And how it can integrate critical thinking and creativity that was very nicely mentioned before by our speakers. And then aspects linked with transparency and understanding. How in this new era we can try to reflect on our lifelong learning approaches in order to be in a position for us as learners, students, parents, educators to understand better AI technologies and technologies, exploring the social interactions and implications and how they may impact the decision-making process and how they may impact us as individuals. And then we can see some meta concerns. I really want to stress these concerns so that we can identify afterwards the different components that will help us solve these concerns. So we see that at a more macroscopic level, poor pedagogical practices may be automated. And this will not be done intentionally, but unintentionally in many cases, where data will be integrated into AI systems with biases or with discriminatory elements, which may be perpetuated in a broader context. And this very element may disempower teachers and students. However, and very significantly, may undermine human rights, in particular the right to quality education. In addition, the risk for devaluating certain important aspects of education, for example, the role and the tasks of teachers as educators, and all these elements of mistrust or elements that have to do with the over-reliance on technology and the devaluation of more social components linked with education. And of course, this links to how we measure our skills and potentially a tendency that we see the last few years towards an over-reliance on easily measurable skills rather than accounting or more humanistic values. And for this reason, I think what was mentioned before about personal integrity is critical, as well as critical thinking, ethics, and democratic ideals. Also, the scarcity of acquiring independent evidence on which is the real impact of technologies on educational settings. So which is the impact of technologies on children, which is the impact on their personal evolution and flourishing from an educational and social aspect. So we see the need, a huge need to address these challenges as soon as possible in order to lead our way to a more flourishing educational, AI and educational environment. How we can do that? Being guided by the core principles of inclusion and equity, as well as integrity and trustworthy AI components. So maybe we can see how we can realize this full potential and address these challenges. I'll try to be very brief because some of the speakers already presented some of these elements. So one critical component is how we can regulate really AI in education. And here we see different perspectives and different approaches focusing on AI and data-centric regulations. And I've placed here for you approaches from the European Union, but also from the Council of Europe, both addressing components linked with AI, like the AI Act and the Gender Data Protection Regulation, but also from the Council of Europe, the Framework Convention on AI and Human Rights, being the first ever international legal binding treaty in the area of AI, in addition to protection of personal data conventions signed a few years in the past. However, we see the last few years following the need for many scholars, but also a lot of work that is conducted by many international initiatives, as well as the Council of Europe, an urgent need to identify a more education-specific legislation. And for this, there is concrete evidence indicating back in 2022, when the Council of Europe created a survey and identified that only 4 out of 23 member states had some sort of regulation or policies regarding the use of AI systems in education, which is really low. So there is a need to regulate AI in education because we need essentially to protect this fundamental human right itself, but also as a means to realize other human rights as well. So following the 2023 Conference of Ministers of Education, there was a resolution that was accepted for a proposal for developing a legal instrument to regulate the use of AI in education. And since then, there have been a lot of studies and different working groups from the side of the Council of Europe working on this. In the recent conference on regulating the use of AI systems in education that took place this October in Strasbourg, there the preparatory study for such a legal instrument was presented in order to further be discussed. So we are making good progress in the area of creating a legally binding, a regulatory framework in the context of AI and education. But maybe you're wondering, and we could also identify a number of additional tools in order to foster such responsible use of AI in the educational context. It is very promising that a lot of initiatives around the world are working towards the same, and I'm really positive that we are slowly getting there. From the side of the Council of Europe, 2 relevant ones have to do with the policy toolbox for teaching and learning with and about AI, aiming to guide policymakers and educational institutions in order to provide some sort of guidance in order to shape AI policies linked with education, provide practical guidance and tool, and of course ensure that all these are aligned with the human rights, democracy, and the rule of law values presented by the Council of Europe. In addition, there is, at a more practical level as well, there is a European evaluation framework to assess education technology. So here we want to identify how we can actually foster the design and development of responsible and trustworthy AI in education systems, how we can create and establish the key elements of such evaluation frameworks for reviewing AI systems that can help educators, but also developers designing their systems. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. I hope I was not over time, Bojana.
It's okay, Ksenia. Thank you so much. You have raised so many important issues, and thank you for all this information from the first hand, because as you said, the conference in Council of Europe was in October. Now we are in early December, so you have shared very important information with us. So while I was listening to your presentation, I was thinking about and you also mentioned that the right to education is a basic human right. And if we think about the education as a public good, and that good quality education is accessible to all, and on one hand. On the other hand, we are facing the fact that never ever in history of humankind, we had such a huge influence of the private tech companies on education as a public good. So protecting education in that way is out of most important issues, I think, that we are facing right now. Since you are already in that field, I will just briefly give you a question and be short. What do you think, what are the key questions about AI that should be answered in the near future?
Okay, that's a very nice question. Thank you, Bojana. Before I go there, I would just like to stress that in the working group that you mentioned at the beginning, in the expert group working in this area of the reference framework, it is me and Dora representing the Council of Europe perspective here, along with a number of esteemed colleagues. Going back to your question, I think that there are numerous questions asking about the future, but what is very important is to consider how we can, and we will choose to reflect on them as individuals. And by that, I want to go back again to the personal responsibility element and the personal integrity of us as individuals in all the learning process, in our different roles as parents, students, teachers, learners. So I think this will be the most important prerequisite for us as a society, our values, our rights, and our personal elements of integrity in order to answer this upcoming questions in the future. I think for me, a key question to go for would be to explore the long-term impacts of AI in education. And this is something potential that we cannot afford to do at the moment, but we need to reflect upon very soon.
Thank you so much, Ksenia. I fully agree with you. Just a couple of days ago, I read an article how today's teenagers do have a different cognitive abilities that are influenced by using the digital technologies, the mobile phone in the early ages and so on. And the main message of the article was that we actually do not know what it can do to us. Like, for example, the smoking of the cigarettes was 200 years ago thought as something that can cure the coffin. So 200 years after we are banning it from, and things like that. But thank you, Ksenia. We don't know, but it's important that we are aware of it and that there are actually steps that brings us closer to understanding of the
and
process.
we invest as a society to learn more about it. This is another
for sure. And this is a task for the generations to come also, and for us too. Dora, you are our last speaker, so you are about to share with us the findings of the research that was done within this particular project. So Dora, please, the floor is.
Great, thank you so much. And talking about, I'm sorry, can you see my screen? Or yes, now I think.
Yes.
Yes, great. Taking the advance of Xenia that she was talking about the long-term risks, I would like to very shortly present the findings of the research that we did as part of the AIEdu project. Okay, just a minute. Okay, great. So very shortly to remind you that AIEdu project, it's a European funding project that aims to encourage development of the new approaches and teaching practices in education by focusing on the impact of AI. So we have two objectives. The first is the research in the field, and the other is the raise awareness regarding the use of AI. So as part of the research in the field, we disseminated with educators from various European countries an online questionnaire and tried to explore teachers' understanding and preconceptions about AI, and mainly their thoughts about how AI potential use is in the field of education. So we managed to receive more than 100 replies from 18 countries. Most of them were from Greece and from Ukraine. We have a variety of faiths, level, background, and field of research, as you can see here. And what we would like to highlight it is that most of the teachers, educators, they, let's say, mention the level of knowledge and awareness in relation to AI technologies as medium. However, most of them are trying to consider AI and have started to experiment with it as part of a teaching process. And some of them are also trying to use AI education application tools in their classrooms. However, they also they mentioned that some of the reasons for using AI are their own self-development, as well as they need to search, structure, summarize information on a topic, and create learning tasks and didactic materials. At the same time, they would like to increase students' motivation to learn and, of course, their own research activities. So they highlighted many opportunities on behalf of the students and on their side as well. And mainly they mentioned that AI can support and actually can increase the support that they can provide to the students, and somehow they encourage them from the engagement. But at the same time, they can, I'm sorry, okay, they can increase they support from themselves, like time saving and improve their teaching quality. But of course, except for the opportunities, there are also some challenges that we have to take into consideration, like the lack of suitable training programs to acquire or enhance AI-related skills, and at the same time, the lack of methodological tools, and of course, the lack of time to enhance their AI-related skills. And some of them, they also mention some ethical issues. But being more focused in the long-term risks associated with the widespread use of AI in the teaching process, on behalf of their side, they were mainly focused in the field of cognitive challenges like the human interaction, intellectual development, or the degrees of reading or researching skills, as well as the risk of over-dependence of technology, which may have some negative impact on their competencies, or the impact of negative human connection, which is the relationship between them and their students. And sometimes maybe there is a risk on the field of disseminate discrimination or other biases. On the other side, talking about the students, the risks were also highlighted more or less at the same field, but they also here, they highlighted the risk in the field of human rights. And talking about human rights, they are talking about the privacy of data, equality, like the equal access of all students to all these AI tools. And they also mentioned freedom and democracy. And here, democracy is something that it's part of our research, and it's something that we'd like to have a deeper focus on that, and asking them to share with us the different aspects that they think that democracy that think that AI could affect in general. So the top 5 answers were about data privacy and data protection, democratic trust and media manipulation, people's willingness to exercise democracy in a negative way, equality, and the freedom of expression and political participation as well. At the same time, talking about democratic cultures and the competencies that are mostly impacted by AI in the field of education, they also highlighted knowledge and critical understanding of the world. The analytical and critical thinking skills, and critical thinking skills is something that was also highlighted from Fran and Roy as well. The competencies about autonomous learning skills, empathy, as we already mentioned in our discussion, and of course the knowledge and critical understanding of themselves. At the same time, talking about how AI influences or may influence the way teachers teach democracy, their approach was mainly highlighted in the field of the provision of personalized learning and the access to diverse perspectives. They also mentioned critical thinking as well and media literacy. And of course, the increase of transparency and the creation of an interactive and a more experiential teaching approach. And at the same time, on the side, talking about students and how AI influences the way students learn to live in democracy. The focus here was also in the field of we can teach them and we can encourage them learn how to use in a responsible and respectful way technology. They are fostering about media literacy and emphasizing about their digital skills. AI can make them to learn process more efficient and interactive, as well as to give them access to vast amounts of information and diverse perspectives. Critical thinking is also here of high importance, as well as personalized learning and access to diverse perspectives. So this is just a brief introduction to the findings.
If there isn't any question or comment, please feel free to write it in the chat. I will give the floor now for my lovely colleague Marianti to wrap this up and to give us some basic information for the further actions. So Marianti, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bojana. Can you hear me, everyone? Yes? Perfect. So I would like to thank, of course, Francisco and Roy, who were with us today, and Xenia and Dora for presenting all those very important aspects of AI in education. And now we were thinking of having a more interactive part in our webinar, where we would also like to hear what people that joined have to say, because maybe they didn't have the chance to take part in the survey and in the research we were doing. So I would kindly ask everyone to maybe scan this QR code, and it will guide you to a Mentimeter page. I don't know if somebody can turn on their mic and tell me if they can join, if they joined, so I can switch my screen to the questions. I can give it some more seconds. Yes, okay, great. Let me just switch. Dora, if you can also send in the chat maybe the link in case you haven't, because I cannot see it now. See my presentation now? Yes? Perfect.
Yes.
Great. So yes, this project, this one-year project is coming to an end with this amazing team that we've been working on for so long, with Oksana, with Bojana, with Dora and Xenia. What will happen next before the new year will be that all the recordings of the webinar will be published online on our YouTube channel. And we're going to have a small series, so the 3 webinars might be there for people who want to catch up, review again, or even see them once more and tell us, you know something, I want to explore this and that more. So it will be a great feedback for us as well. And we're going to disseminate the information when it's uploaded on our Facebook and LinkedIn and our organization's channels of the European Wergeland Centre and Demokritos. And yes, actually, we're coming to an end, and we would like to ask you to fill in the evaluation form of this webinar. Dora has also sent the link in the chat. And next week, we're going to send over the certificates of participation for those who who filled in the evaluation form. Otherwise, we don't have the emails to send them. And last but not least, before I give it back to Bojana, I would like to thank Bojana from the depth of my heart for facilitating all these webinars. She did an amazing job. So a round of applause for me in person, for you it can be a reaction. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Marianti, and thanks. My great gratitude goes to all the colleagues that you have mentioned. And to be honest, I feel a bit sorry that we come to an end of this extremely interesting project. And I feel that, at least myself, I'm a pioneer in this field, and being not in technical